Alright, next example. This one doesn't actually start out in the correct form that we need for the quadratic formula. So remember here, to use the quadratic formula, you must have a 0 on one side and everything else on the other. So to do that, I'm going to first subtract off the 5 from both sides of this equation. Now it's an unlike term to everything else. So this equation is going to end up with x squared minus 2x minus 5 equals 0. Right? So now I'm going to go through and use the quadratic formula. Remember, I'm going to write the quadratic formula down every time. So it's x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And again, remember what the a, b, c are. I'll put those over to the side here. A is going to be 1 because it's the coefficient of the x squared. B is going to be a negative 2 because it's the coefficient of the x. And c is the constant, which in this case is negative 5. So those are our three numbers that we're going to plug in. So again, when I set this up, I'm going to replace all the variables with empty parentheses. And divide here by 2a, which is another set of empty parentheses. Then my b's become negative 2. My a's both become 1. And the c is going to become a negative 5. Okay. Now, I leave the parentheses in there for a very important reason. If you don't have the parentheses, it is so easy to mess up negative signs in this formula. And so I think the parentheses are a vital part. I know people don't like to write them down. Don't get lazy with the parentheses. They are going to be a lifesaver, I believe, in this quadratic formula. So let's continue simplifying here. I've got a double negative that makes a positive 2. Here's the spot where a lot of people get confused. If they don't have the parentheses here, they end up with the wrong sign on this term. Negative 2 squared, because you're squaring the whole thing, that negative drops out and that just becomes a positive 4. Okay, you have to have the parentheses there in order to drop that negative out. Here I've got a double negative, right? Negative 4 times negative 5. The 1 I don't really need. It doesn't change anything. So negative 4 times negative 5 is positive 20, so I'm going to add 20. And then I'm going to divide all of this by 2 times 1, which is just 2. All right, going on and simplifying, I get a 24 under the root. Now, the bad thing is this 24 is not a perfect square, but it does have a perfect square factor, so it can be simplified. Okay, and so we're going to simplify roots whenever possible. So this becomes 2 plus or minus. Now remember, root 24 is the same as root of 4 times 6. We've seen this some examples in the past. And the square root of square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of 6 doesn't simplify. So this root is actually 2 root 6. And then we divide by the 2. All right, now this 2 on the bottom is dividing each of those terms on top, so it's actually going to distribute to both of them. I could write this as 2 over 2 plus or minus 2 root 6 over 2, and then simplify a bunch of the 2's out. All right, so 2 over 2 is 1. Plus or minus, and these 2's cancel as well, and I'm just left with a root 6, square root 6. So my final answer as a solution set is going to be the two numbers 1 plus and minus the square root of 6. So one answer will have the plus, one answer will have the minus.